On the night of July 22, 1934, when a film screening ended at the Biograph Theater in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood, America's most wanted man John Dillinger would draw his last breath. But what happened to the young woman Polly Hamilton who was with him that night and knew nothing about what was coming? How did this woman experience the final hours of America's most famous bank robber, and how did her life change after that terrible night?
My name is Polly Hamilton, and the story I am about to tell you is about that night that changed my life forever. In July 1934, I was an ordinary woman living in Chicago. I was 26 years old and had come from Gary, Indiana. The allure of big city life had drawn me here, just like thousands of other young women of that era. I worked as a waitress at the restaurant where I was employed and lived alone in my small apartment. Meeting the Romanian woman named Anna Sage became the turning point of my life. Anna was someone who seemed experienced due to her age, always dressed beautifully, and had a mysterious aura about her. She ran a small nightclub in the Lincoln Park neighborhood, and I would go there occasionally. There were always interesting men around, elegant men in suits, who came with expensive cars and spent lots of money. At the end of June, the man Anna introduced me to was named Jimmy Lawrence. At least that was the name he told me. He was around 30, medium height, with dark hair and very handsome. He had gray eyes, and when he looked at me, I felt as if he could read my soul. His speech was soft but he was confident. He paid great attention to his appearance, always clean-shaven, perfumed, and wearing expensive suits. Jimmy's hand was always in his pocket, and he was constantly checking his surroundings. At first, I found this behavior strange, but later I thought he was just a careful man. Chicago was not a safe city in 1934. The Prohibition era had ended, but gangs still roamed the streets. Even though Al Capone was in prison, his legacy was still felt in the city. Jimmy was very kind to me. He would take me to expensive restaurants, buy me beautiful dresses, and do everything I wanted. He never had any money problems. He would always pull out thick stacks of banknotes from his pocket, brand new $20 bills with no wrinkles on them. He would spend these banknotes without counting them, as if he had an endless source. We would have dinner at the Empire Room in the Palmer House Hotel. It was Chicago's most luxurious restaurant at that time. Crystal chandeliers, velvet curtains, silver cutlery. Jimmy would give generous tips to the waiters. One evening at dinner, he had given a $50 tip that was a normal worker's weekly wage at that time. The waiters knew him and would reserve his special table. He would buy me dresses from Marshall Field's department store, made from silk fabrics, the latest fashion clothes coming from Paris. My shoes were Italian leather, my bags were French design. These were things I could never afford for myself. Jimmy had very good taste. He knew which color would suit me, which cut would be appropriate for my body type. When I asked him what his job was, he would say he was an accountant, but it never seemed convincing. Which accountant could spend this much money? His hands were very soft, not the hands of someone who worked at a desk. His fingertips were calloused as if he was someone who used guns. But at that time, I did not pay attention to these things. I was a woman in love and I was not seeing what I did not want to see. During the nights we spent together, he showed me the most beautiful places in Chicago. We would take walks along Lake Michigan shore and spend time at Navy Pier. We would have picnics in Grant Park and sit for hours by Buckingham Fountain. Jimmy knew the city very well, every street, every corner, every shortcut. It was as if he had been living here for years. But we would go to Lincoln Park Zoo. Jimmy loved animals very much, especially lions. He would stand in front of their cages for a long time. They were created to be born free, he would say, but now they are in cages. There was sadness in his eyes at that moment. It was as if he was talking about himself. He would also have a lot of fun watching monkeys, throwing peanuts at them. He would laugh like children. Sometimes when we saw a police car, I would notice him suddenly becoming tense. His face would tighten, his steps would quicken. He would pull his hat down deeper, raise his collar. Cold weather is coming, he would say, but the weather was hot. After the police passed, he would take a relieved breath. During those days, I had begun to notice changes in Jimmy's behavior. He was more tense, more careful. He was constantly looking out windows, listening to sounds on the street. When he heard car engines, he would freeze. He would even look suspiciously at the sound of footsteps. Sometimes when he woke up in the middle of the night, he would be drenched in sweat. He was having nightmares. One night when he was holding my hand, I felt him trembling. "Jimmy, what is happening? Why are you so scared?" I had asked. He had hugged me tightly. "Polly, if you cannot find me one day, do not try to look for me. Just go and never look back," he had said. I found these words very strange, but at that time I just thought he was worried. He always carried a gun in his pocket, a small nickel-plated Colt automatic. Sometimes I had seen him cleaning it. His hands looked very experienced when holding that gun, as if he had been using it for years. For protection, he would say, "Chicago is a dangerous city." It really was. Even though Al Capone's gang was disbanded, his men were still on the streets. At night while sleeping, he would talk in his sleep. He would murmur, "They are coming. Melvin is coming." When I asked who Melvin was, he would say he did not know. Now I understand he was talking about FBI Special Agent Melvin Purvis, one of J. Edgar Hoover's special operatives, the nightmare of gangsters. July 22, 1934, night was destined to be the most traumatic night of my life. That evening the weather was very hot. Chicago was suffocating from the summer heat, and everyone had gone outside to cool off. The thermometer showed 35 degrees, and the humidity was very high. People were trying to cool off on fire escapes, on park lawns, by the lake shore. Jimmy was acting very strange that day. He had gotten up early in the morning, taken a bath, and put on his best suit. Dark blue, striped, Brooks Brothers brand. His tie was silk, his shoes were shiny black leather. He had combed his hair with pomade, applied aftershave lotion. It was as if he had prepared to go somewhere special. He had barely eaten lunch. He had the Chicago Tribune newspaper in his hand. On the front page was his own picture, with the headline, "America's Most Wanted Man, Still on the Run." While looking at the newspaper, there was a bitter smile on his lips. "Being famous is not easy either," he had murmured. He was constantly looking at his watch, watching the street from the window. Even when he was at Anna's house, he could not relax. He would light a cigarette, take a few puffs, then put it out. His hands were shaking. When he wanted something to drink, he asked for ice water. "I am very thirsty," he said. "It is as if my mouth has dried up." That evening, Anna suggested we go to the cinema. Manhattan Melodrama is playing at the Biograph Theater. Clark Gable and William Powell are in it. "It will be a good film," she said. Jimmy was reluctant at first, but Anna insisted. Finally, he agreed. "Okay, but let us return early," he said. The Biograph Theater was on Lincoln Avenue, a very beautiful cinema. It was a large building designed in Art Deco style with neon lights. It was one of Chicago's most popular cinemas at that time. We went to the 8:30 p.m. showing. Jimmy looked very tense while buying the tickets. He was constantly looking around, even looking suspiciously at the cashier. When we entered the cinema, Jimmy wanted to sit in the back rows. "We will see the screen better," he said, but the real reason was to be close to the exit. When the film started, Jimmy could not focus at all. Instead of watching Clark Gable's performance, he was constantly scanning the hall. When my hand was in his, I could feel him trembling. Manhattan Melodrama was, ironically, the story of a gangster. The character played by William Powell was a prosecutor named Jim Wade, and Clark Gable was his childhood friend, the gangster Blackie Gallagher. As the film progressed, Jimmy became more and more tense. It was as if he was watching his own life on screen. During the most dramatic scene of the film, when Blackie Gallagher was dying in the electric chair, I heard Jimmy take a very deep breath next to me. "Everything will end," he whispered. At that moment, I did not understand what he meant, but now when I think about it, it was as if he was foreseeing his own fate. The film ended at 10:15 p.m. Jimmy was walking very slowly as we left the hall. There was no trace of his usual quick steps. Anna was walking in front of us and kept turning around to look at us. Now when I think about it, I realize that Anna was acting very strange that night. She looked very tense and was constantly looking toward the exit door. As we approached the cinema exit, Jimmy suddenly stopped. "Polly, I love you very much," he said. His voice was very serious and melancholic. "Whatever happens, do not forget this." I was surprised by these words. "Jimmy, what is happening?" "You are acting very strange," I said. He just smiled and said, "Nothing, sweetheart. I just wanted to tell you that I love you very much." The exit of the Biograph Theater opened onto Lincoln Avenue. When we came out the door, the street looked normal. It was a summer night and people were outside. Families, couples, young people, everyone was trying to take advantage of the cool air. Jimmy took a deep breath. "What a beautiful night," he said. After taking a few steps, everything happened very quickly. Suddenly men emerged from the dark street. "FBI, hands up," they shouted. Jimmy's hand automatically went to his pocket, but then he gave up. He turned to me and shouted, "Run, Polly. Run now." At that moment, I was confused. What was happening? Why was the FBI looking for Jimmy? I started running, but I had not gone very far when I heard gunshots. 1, 2, 3 shots. When I turned around, I saw Jimmy lying on the ground. He was covered in blood. I ran to his side. "Jimmy, Jimmy," I was screaming. His eyes were open but they were getting blurry. "Who are you?" I asked. As he was taking his last breath, he whispered, "John Dillinger." At that moment, my world collapsed on me. He was not Jimmy Lawrence, he was John Dillinger. I had fallen in love with America's most wanted man. He had robbed the Bank of America, First National Bank. He was the last great gangster of the Prohibition era. He was the name I always read in newspaper headlines. There was chaos around us. FBI agents, police, ambulance. People were screaming. Anna was crying in a corner, but her tears did not look sincere. Now I understood. Anna had betrayed him. She was the woman they called Lady in Red. That night she had worn a red dress, and this had been a signal to the FBI. He was taken to the hospital, but it was too late. John Dillinger, America's most famous bank robber, died in front of the Biograph Theater. The media carried this to the headlines as the end of Public Enemy #1. The Chicago Tribune, Chicago Sun-Times, all newspapers gave this news on the front page.
Polly Hamilton's life after that night was never the same again. Being known as John Dillinger's girlfriend caused her to experience great trauma. Anna Sage, in exchange for the money she received from the FBI, was saved from being deported from the United States, but she was crushed under the burden of her conscience. This story shows that love can be as deceptive as it is powerful. Sometimes we do not really know the person we love, and suddenly our life can change completely.